Welcome. I'm Nancy Russo of Creatives Roundtable. I'm happy to welcome Deb Boulanger to present today. For those of you who are new here, the Creatives Roundtable offers small group coaching and accountability. We meet monthly and online to help with the business side of your creative business by breaking your goals into bite-sized tasks that are manageable, talking about hot topics, getting feedback from one another. Members get free perks such as these events, our co-working focus sessions, which are once a week, and happy hour, and our active Slack community. Besides the coaching groups, we do have that Slack community membership that includes 50% off for all these events and inclusion in co-working focus sessions, our active conversation channels, and our happy hour, which is run by Janine, who is on the call letting people in right now. Our next event is March 16th, Marketing Chaos to Conversions, featuring Jenny Moravsky-Poff. Jenny founded the Designers Roundtable, which became the Creatives Roundtable upon my taking it over. You will be added to our email list so you can hear about our other events like this. You can certainly unsubscribe if you're not interested. If you would like to respond to what Deb is saying, she encourages that. Please use your digital hand. It is on the bottom of your screen or wherever your tools are. If you click on reactions, you will see you can raise your hand and lower your hand. I first met Deb Boulanger at a Fly Female Founders event, an organization that I co-founded with several other women. She's an impressive speaker and an impressive human being. Over the past 20 years, Deb has launched dozens of services, have generated hundreds of millions in revenue for her clients, and launched and grew a single division of Gartner from 0 to 32 million in 30 months. And I never asked you if you knew Rich Eld, who's one of the founders.
Rich Eld is a very dear friend of mine. I have spoken at Serious Decisions and then Forrester Research events, and then I just had the joy of coaching Rich's sister, Terry. So yes, the entire Eld family I'm a huge fan of.
They used to live around the corner from me, and our girls are friends. Deb has taught and advised hundreds of new and aspiring women entrepreneurs to use these same proven strategies to test their business ideas and validate their money-making model. These days, you can find her as the CEO of The Great Do-Over, founder of the Launch Lab for Women Entrepreneurs, and host of the Life After Corporate podcast, which is really great. Take it away, Deb.
Thank you so much, everyone. So I have some slides to go through today that will help give you a context and hopefully a new way of thinking about some of the current challenges that we're facing. And as Nancy said, I really like this to be highly interactive. We're a small group, we're an intimate group. So as you have a question, raise your hand. I do ask that you be fully present during this conversation and to turn off your phone, your cell phone, turn it over so you're not distracted by notifications, to try not to double task, simply because you've invested the time to be here. I've invested the time to be here, and you will get the most out of this conversation if you are here and give yourself the gift of your full attention. So with that, I will dive right in. So Nancy did give you a bit about my background. Basically, it was my job at Gartner to launch things. I've had roles in sales, marketing. The last role I had was in product management. I've been in product marketing, product development. So I was an executive leader in that technology advisory services company. And what I became known for was being an expert at pattern recognition, right? So understanding what is the gap in the market right now, what do people really need that's not being solved by others, and how could we package a solution and sell that and really capture some more market share. I apply those same strategies to women entrepreneurs in the Launch Lab for Women Entrepreneurs and the Six-Figure Accelerator, which is a new program we launched a couple of years ago. So why this conversation and why now, right? So we are in a time of economic inflation and uncertainty, yet there were many businesses that were launched and thrived in times like these, including Dropbox, Uber, and several others. And as we discussed before I got started, you may be seeing shifts in your business. Maybe clients are pulling back on their contracts. Maybe it's harder to sell new customers, or it's harder to get price increases through. But you're committed. You're committed to your business, to your passion, to your mission, and retreating right now is not an option. So how do we thrive in this type of environment and even grow? So I want to share with you the 4 core elements of predictable growth, reliable growth for your business. I also want to talk to you about pricing your services based on value and generating more revenue per client with something we call a services value ladder, so that you can also close more clients with a different way of looking at the sales conversation, which we call R.O.A. And I'll share a little bit more about that with you. And then as the CEO of your creative agency, you need to have a growth plan. And I can share more about that after this session is over, so that you can make more money with less effort. So I'd love to hear from you. Why did you launch your business? Why did you launch? You can just type in chat for this one and I'll take a look at chat. But for me, after my 20-year tenure at Gartner, I was facing burnout in that corporate job. I was also coming to the end of a 20-year marriage, and being a newly single mom, it was time for me to come up with a new plan, right? And I never had planned on entrepreneurship, but I was an intrapreneur in corporate for much of those 20 years. So creating new programs came naturally to me. But even then, there was a huge challenge in moving from that corporate environment to understanding how to survive and thrive as an entrepreneur. So we are here today to help you grow your clients, grow your revenue, and realize that dream you have for your business. And I know you might not have it all wrapped up right now, and that this economy is causing some concerns for you. So I'll be sharing with you the growth framework that has worked for me, even in this environment, and for my clients as well. Right, so time, the flexibility to work when and where you choose, and who you choose to work with. And for some of you, maybe the decision was not your own. And there were no other jobs, so you started your own business, Linda. Right. So Nancy, you had role models in your family. Many of us didn't even have role models for entrepreneurship, or that was always a burning desire inside of you, Janine. Right. Okay, great, Christine. Thank you. Thank you. So we've seen the promise of what's possible. And we've talked about the number one challenge. So we don't need to go for this right now. The things I heard was finding clients with lots of money, how to raise my rates. Things are getting tighter in the market. Are people going to choose do-it-yourself offerings? So I have a lot that I want to share with you that you can do right now. Because the grit and gumption formula only gets so far, or the hustle culture, as some people say. And following someone else's marketing formula usually doesn't work. Wishful thinking strategies don't work. And sometimes your warm networks of clients can dry up over time. So you need a solid growth plan so that you're continually set up to get new clients and avoid the feast or famine months of revenue in your business. So the business growth framework that I've created has 4 basic pillars. And that is, number 1, you package your services as products. So if you're charging by the hour right now, this will give you a new way of looking at how to price and package your services. And to also price your services based on value. And we'll talk about that. The R.O.A sales call formula is a way for you to get to the ultimate value of the transformation that your design and creative services actually deliver. And being able to have those strong sales conversations so that you have strong sales conversions. And then how do you show up in your business? How do you manage your time as CEO of this growing enterprise? So I have a formula for predictable growth, and that is you have a predictable stream of qualified leads plus predictable product delivery times a predictable close rate. And we'll dive into this in more detail. So some questions to get you started. And if you're taking notes, these are great ones to write down. What is the gap that I fill in my market? What is the problem that my ideal clients have that needs solving and they can't solve on their own? That just having access to a Canva account isn't going to solve that. And what programs and packages do I offer that solve that problem? Because this is where the gem of the opportunity may lie for you. And I'll give you a graphic visual since we're all visual here, right? So here's what a client value ladder looks like. So we have, what is that most pressing challenge that the ideal clients in my market have? And then what is my foundational core offer that I could offer that helps solve that challenge? Usually when we get over that first hurdle, there's a new challenge or a new problem that emerges. And then that's the opportunity to open up for a deeper engagement, a broader relationship with your clients that you're working with. And then sometimes they have a longer term challenge. And this is great. This is where we get to create retainer relationships, which are high ticket offers or advisory relationships with our clients, where we're an extended member of their staff. So to illustrate this, I'll just share a little bit about my client value ladder. So I serve women who are leaving corporate to start a coaching or consulting or other service-based business. I do have some web designers and content creators in my programs as well. So how do you launch a business? When they're first leaving and entrepreneurship was not in their DNA and it's something that wasn't expected, having a basic foundation that's quick, easy to consume, that gets them to that product market fit. Who are the people I serve? What's the problem I solve? And what are my packages and prices? And how do I message around that to get new clients? And then my clients were graduating from the Launch Lab and I was saying, congratulations, you're done. And they're saying, Deb, what's next? And actually, Nancy, it was you who in the pandemic said, who here knows how to deliver a great webinar? And I don't know if you know this, but you were the reason why I started a program called Standout Webinars.
I did not know that. I know that we were looking for someone to help us. Yeah.
Yeah. So that conversation clued me into like, oh yeah, there's a new market need here that didn't exist in the same degree it did once COVID hit, which was that everyone needed to get clients and they needed to sell online. So I created a program that we still offer called Standout Webinars. It's now an 8-week program. Robin Hatcher still partners with me and she delivers the WOW presentation module. But we help clients build a high converting webinar in 8 weeks. And literally, I will tell you, I've closed $1.8 million worth of business through webinars alone over the last 5 years or so. So they are powerful tools, whether you're delivering an in-person workshop or a webinar. You need to be discoverable. You can't be discoverable, invisible and discoverable at the same time. And after Standout Webinars, they were like, Deb, this is great. How do we keep working with you? I want to increase my sales. I want to get more sophisticated with my marketing. And I need to learn how to be a CEO in my business so that I can make revenue growth predictable. And that's when we launched the 6-Figure Accelerator. So if you like, take a snapshot of the empty framework and you can noodle on this after this session is over. What is your client value ladder? What is the first problem that clients have when they come to you? And what is your solution? And in that second triangle, we want a solution that's probably not the highest end solution that you have to offer, but might be something that's a little bit more digestible, especially in this market, where there's a quick win, where there's a quick solution. And then what is the new problem that emerges once you solve that first challenge? And what does that new solution look like? And so on and so on, right? So let me give you another example. So here's Lisa Rabluck. So I met Lisa in one of my professional networks, and that's a hint for you. You have the Creative Roundtable here, which is an association of people who are in the industry like you. You also need to show up in places where your ideal clients are hanging out. And for me, that was Elevate Network and places like Fly Female Founders and Luminary and others. So Lisa Rabluck was a consultant, former journalist, an ESG consultant based in Canada. And she was working all the time. And I think you guys will probably identify with her plight. She was working all of the time. All of her hours were tied up, and she was full up and she was exhausted. She couldn't take on any more clients, and she was doing all the things for her clients. So if you're feeling like you're doing all the things, give me an emoji or type me in chat if you feel like you're like the gun for hire on anything creative for the clients that you work with. And it's exhausting, and eventually you run out of time, and eventually you tap out of revenue because you're charging by the hour. So we reframed Lisa, and I love her company. It's the Wicked Ideas. Wicked Ideas is her company, and we created the Wicked Solutions Studio. And the Wicked Solutions Studio was then a 10-week offering that she could charge $5,000 for, and have multiple executives enroll in it so that they could get their ESG strategy in place. Like, who are the major stakeholders? What were their objectives? How did they sell this internally? And after that, those 10 weeks, they had a roadmap, but then it was, well, how do we implement this? Now that we have this strategy, how do we implement this? So she started offering retainer-based advisory services. And some of you might be in a position to elevate your being the one who does all things to strategic advisory services on retainer for some of your clients, where you are advising them on their communication strategy. You're advising them on their design or major initiatives. And so what this did was this brought her in 1 quarter the amount of revenue she made in an entire year. So she actually went into 2022. She walked into 2022 with $250,000 of revenue already on the books. So that was a huge, huge shift for her. So to develop high value offers or high ticket offers and start charging higher fees, you need to find that gap. You know, what is it missing? So it's stop grabbing at all the opportunities because there's a fear or scarcity of, you know, I might not have another client, or, you know, I need this money. And start focusing on more profitable offerings that solve a gap in the market, and then productize those offerings and value ladder those services so that you're creating a path of progress so that clients stay with you for months, if not years. Is this making sense? Just want to, let's pause, Nancy, and understand, you know, is this making sense?
It is to me. Does anyone have any questions?
We're good to go?
Yep, I think so.
Okay. So in order to grow, and this is our goal in the accelerator. So once I cracked this code for myself, I started testing it with a few OGs. There were 4 women who joined the accelerator our very first year. And I gave them a very favorable price point. I said, let's test this out, because I've been able to add 6 figures of revenue growth to my business year after year. I want to test to see if you can do it too. And so I created something called the pricing calculator. We also call it the revenue calculator, and I'm happy to drop the link to this in chat so you can download it too and start playing with your service offerings. So to double your revenue, you need those core elements of productized services that can be delivered in a way that allows you to grow. And that you have priced your services based on your return on advantage, and that you have a strong close rate. So if you're not measuring your close ratio, and that's simply how many conversations do I need to have in order to get someone to become a client? And so in this particular case, someone had a revenue goal of 200,000. They had corporate clients at 7,000, entrepreneurs at 3, and they had a group membership program at 700. So where do we want the most of the revenue to come from? So if you want most of the revenue to come from a very low end offer, then it's a very slow slog, and you have to talk to a lot of people in order to get them to buy low end offers. So if you focus on high-end offers, and the majority of your clients come, and I can pull down the revenue calculator and I can model it with anyone in the room if you're interested. When you're focusing on higher end offers, and for you, some of you, this might be a $20,000 offer or $25,000 offer or $50,000 offer. Then we're looking at selling a particular number of those and getting in front of those people, having sales conversations, and that's how revenue growth becomes predictable. Does that make sense? So here's Molly. Molly's a change management consultant, but like you, like many of you, she was in demand and she was charging by the hour. She was working in highly regulated industries like financial services and healthcare, driving results through these change management initiatives. And she had tapped out of all her time. She couldn't take on any more clients, and she was tapped out at around 200K in revenue. And so what we did was we modeled out her pricing. And because she had done this so many times, her time investment was predictable. So we modeled it out in an Excel spreadsheet, doubled her rates, and came up with project prices based on the average size of some of these projects. So she had a low end and a high end. But in all cases, we doubled what she typically took away from those assignments. The very next day, she got a call from a potential client and she quoted the new rate. And they said, thanks very much, we'll send over a PO. There was no pushback. So I have a lot to say about pricing, especially about women and how they price their service offerings. But this enabled her to grow 250% in 6 months. And at the end of last year, Molly hit 7 figures. So we celebrate Molly every time we get a chance because she had the confidence in her ability to deliver this change. And if you have confidence in your ability to deliver on the creative projects that you're producing, you too have the ability to go from charging by the hour to project-based prices and even increasing your fees. And pricing is hard because it kicks up all your stuff. For women in particular, it's hard not to get your self-worth and your self-esteem mixed up with the value that you're providing. So you might be thinking, well, what is an hour of my time worth? Right? So, and most women I know underprice their services because they undervalue their impact. We're going to be unpacking a little bit more when we start talking about the R.O.A framework. But for right now, step away from tying up your self-worth or what an hour of your time worth was with your pricing. So I'll be working with you on this and we can talk about later. So you can download your pricing calculator. It's thegreatdoover.com/pricing, and that's free to you. There's a training video that I created. There's a workbook. And for many people that I give this talk to, it has become one of their favorite tools because it takes the mystery out of sales. And it takes the mystery out of what your offers are and how much you're charging. And it also helps you drive your priorities and your CEO behaviors. Other clients. Oops. So I mentioned something to track is who am I having conversations with and how many of those conversations are actually converting into clients. So if you have 3 conversations and one of those conversations is someone that becomes a client, you have a 33% close rate. If you have 5 conversations and one person becomes a client, you have a 20% close rate. Knowing that is particularly important when you want to have predictable revenue so that you know how many appointments you need to have on your calendar in any given week. And the key to effective sales closing is understanding your R.O.A. And I love to play with this. Does anyone know what R.O.A stands for? You want to take a guess? Can just unmute.
Didn't you say it was return on advantage?
I did. Did I let the cat out of the bag already?
I wrote it down. Yes.
You're right. Bing, bing, bing. It is return on advantage. And this was something that came to me in having a conversation with my copywriter, actually. And we were creating a new talk, a 5-day masterclass. And I said, this is really not about, it's the pricing masterclass. And I said, it's not really about return on investment because it's much longer term than that. It's much broader, and there's a psychological benefit as well as a financial benefit. It's more like your return on advantage. And we ended up trademarking that term because it's so important that you embrace this concept that it's not about you, it's all about them. It's about the benefits of that your work delivers to your ideal clients. Now, there might be a cost to them of not having their communications tied up, of not having a visual identity that matches the value that they want to deliver to their market. So there's a cost to that, to not getting it right. And there's also a value of change and what lies on the other side of the solutions that you deliver. And there's a distinct value to that. And that might be an opportunity for you to start measuring that value with some of the clients that you're already working with. And then there might be a longer term result or a longer term benefit that they would expect to get. And is there a value that they can put on that? So this is value in the eyes of your ideal clients, but you might need to ask some questions of them to prompt them to understand what the value is that they're getting back. And if you're helping clients with their Google Analytics, Google now has something called the Google Data Studio, which is fantastic because it can integrate insights and what is the term I'm looking for? Results from like social media platforms and everything like that, and putting together a dashboard for you. And that might be a great tool for you guys to be using and having these regular conversations. Let's look at how things are changing month after month. So to calculate your return on advantage, there are some hard dollar costs that clients might be investing in today that aren't delivering value to them. And so what's the cost of doing nothing? What's the opportunity cost of not addressing the challenges that they have? And what is the emotional, financial, or physical benefit of those changes over time? And what would you be charging for your services if you had confidence that your clients would receive a 10x return? So this is a little mental hack that I use, is if someone is part of the accelerator, over the course of our work together, can I put them in a situation where they can earn 10 times what they've invested in this program? And that gives me confidence in having the conversation and communicating with people about what the value of what I offer is. And it also gives them a sense of understanding that it's not about the time we're spending together. It's about the results that they get. So many of my clients in their very first year in the accelerator end up doubling their revenue. And so it's proven. And once you start collecting the data from your clients on what the impact of change is for them, then you have that data and you can start sharing it with prospective clients as well. And it's not about pitching or convincing people to work with you. So sales is a tricky thing, right? So your energy precedes the sale. We want to be fully present. I had a coach who said, I show up, I do my best, I say thank you, and I release the rest. But sometimes in our desire to be accepted, to our desire to be considered smart, intelligent, or expert in our fields, we may overteach, we may overconsult. We might try to justify our expertise of why we're different from other people in our pool. And you are all playing in a very crowded category. So it's critical that you be able to differentiate yourself and be known for something. I always like to use the term own your lane. Be known for something, be a master of it, and differentiate yourself from others. And in the sales process, it's really all about asking powerful questions that help your ideal client come to know that they need you. They need you. They don't just need a designer or a content producer or copywriter. They need you. So there are 3 steps to generating more revenue. You can increase your fees. We had that conversation before. Everything else is increasing in price. If you have noticed, even when you go to a restaurant, they're passing along the 3% bank fee for using a credit card. You can add new offers. You can add new products to your portfolio. and you can improve your sales conversion rate. So that's a great slide to take a screenshot of as well. As you look at that, what do you need to do? Do you feel like you need to increase your fees, add new products, or improve your sales conversion rate, or all three? If you do all three, you're guaranteed to make a positive impact on your revenue. So I just want to stop sharing for a second and just open it up. And what have you learned so far, and what questions do you have?
I'd actually be curious to see how many people do charge by the hour versus by the project. So if you could raise your hands or your virtual hand, if you charge by the hour.
Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do the project. Depends.
I do both.
Do both, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've done the pricing masterclass and just challenge people to double their rates and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And I was stopped right outside of Luminary one day. I'm not that famous, by the way. And I'm crossing Broadway and someone said, "Are you Deb Boulanger?" And I whipped around like, who knows who I am? And it was a woman who went to my pricing masterclass. And we pulled up the pricing calculator and we doubled her fees, doubled her rates. And she started using those prices, and she hit like 6 figures in 3 months, was able to leave her full-time job. And she said, "Thank you, you changed my life."
That's great.
So as you know, and I can get philosophical on this, but as women, we're operating on a conditioned set of lowered expectations, right? So it's cultural conditioning. In the corporate world, we're earning 78, 80 cents on the dollar. In the entrepreneurial world, we're earning 30 cents to the dollar.
Wow.
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 That's incredible.
And so there's lots of room for you to increase your fees. And it may feel uncomfortable at first, but even if you can only align by 50% for the next new client that comes along, if you're confident in your value proposition, you're confident in the value of that to clients, just raise your fees by 50%, see what happens. You can always dial back. You cannot increase your fees after you've said yes to the assignment.
Right. Does anyone have any questions or anything that they'd like to add?
Or what's the biggest insight so far?
I think for me, it's the importance of having like clear packages of what you do. Because I have things that I do, but I don't present them really as clear packages. And I feel like I've been sort of like buzzing around it for a while, but haven't like really defined them. And I think having also like behind those packages, like at least one example of what you've done for a different company, and I think sort of like presenting that to a client and then also the higher price. I think that's sort of like what has clarified for me to help me with what I do.
Because right now on your site, you have starting at, don't you, Amy? Instead of,
I have that in the intake form.
okay,
I don't think I have it listed on like my services. I have like my services 3 columns, but they're not really defined packages. And I've been researching like other designers, and some of them do have clearly defined packages. And I think, after listening to you, that's something that I should do for sure.
and Amy does
packages,
packaging design and branding design.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, like a brand identity design,
Mhm.
and then I have packaging design, and then I have strategy sessions.
Mhm.
Um,
And I wouldn't put your prices on your website.
yeah.
Yeah, right. I was just going to mention that. For me, it's a little more uncomfortable to do that if I'm working with fellow contractors and they're coming under my umbrella. You don't really want to reveal to other people sometimes what you're charging, for the
Right.
project, because then they seem to think they have a say in what they should be paid for. So, yeah, I would not publish on my website personally.
Yeah.
Also, what you said about the 30 cents on the dollar for entrepreneurs, that's so crazy.
88% of women business owners earn less than $100,000 a year in revenue.
Wow. Kathleen,
So
like you unmuted and we're gonna say something.
Oh, yes, no, I was in response to sort of not pricing on the packages. It also has the advantage of if you just list the price, the package and don't price it, gives you the advantage of being able to kind of, maybe there's a vanity project that like, it'll look great on your portfolio, but they're an NGO and they can't pay as much as like a big corporate. You can then slide your scale a little bit without people saying, well, I want the NGO rate, or I want the, that kind of a thing.
yeah.
I do find though with packages, like, do you still find yourself having to sort of be careful to really broad stroke it maybe on your site, but then really detail it? Because what I find as a designer is that people are looking for any angle to have scope creep. And so I've found myself really having to be careful with being super specific on what they're getting once we get into the contract phase. I don't know how much detail you suggest putting into that upfront, or wait till.
Yeah, I would put the detail in, upfront, certainly in the contract, because scope creep is a real thing, but also it comes to your own branding and what is it that you want to be known for. So as I was listening to you, Amy, it was just like, well, what gives you like real joy, and what makes you, because each one of you is unique. I mean, no one thinks the way you do. No one has the same, creative chemistry that you do. So really doing some work on what makes you different. And it's typically a compilation of your entire life experience, not just your experience as a designer or creative. Yeah. Yeah, Linda.
So I'd like to go back to slide 27. That was when you made the comment about what would you charge if your design would give your clients 10 times the amount of revenue, whatever, to have, that's what it said, like, what would you be charging if your clients can have a 10 times return? So I have often have asked to be included in those conversations. I ask about their end goal, what the purpose of that design is, and where do they see it? How is it going to elevate what it is that they need to elevate, and what's their target? And I'm often having that hard time getting into those conversations with those clients because they just see me as somebody who's making this pretty PDF. And it's like, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here for the purpose of this design is to, you need to be in front of your competitors, not behind them. And that's why my design is going to help you communicate that particular point to your, to your audience. But having that conversation, I'm often left out, and I'm going, why are you leaving me out? And why I feel like I've been kind of demoted to a secretary. Some of these clients are paying me a lot of money, but yet I'm still left out of that conversation. And I've been asking, please include me in your marketing strategy meetings because I'm part of that particular conversation. And it's like, why I often feel as a designer, I'm kind of like left off in that process. Yes, I can bring value 10 times over, and I don't know if it's the onset of like Canva and other AI crap out there that's sort of, I don't know if it's really replacing me, but it just seems like, I can just do that, So I wanted to go back to that slide to talk about how I can be more present in that conversation to show that I have value in that conversation with my work.
Yeah, I think having a very strong set of intake questions. And I also think having digital dashboards that measure. So whenever I create a PDF or a lead magnet, I use an application called Lead Pages. And we are looking at what those conversion rates are. If I have a webinar and there's an opt-in page for that webinar, and we don't have at least a 30 to 40% conversion rate of people who land on that page, then I feel like we're off mark, right? So understanding, maybe doing an assessment of how well their existing digital assets are converting for them now. So that could be step one of our work together, is this assessment. Where are you today? Identifying the gap, and then you creating some sort of metrics or digital dashboards for, here's how we measure our success going forward. It's a little bit scary, because you want to be able to prove that things are better now than they were before. But you might also be doing competitive analysis. So your set of questions might be, who are your primary competitors? What has been the success rate of your marketing initiatives up until this point of time? What's your average conversion rate on your pages? How many unique visitors? How long did they stay? By bringing it down to a concrete value-based conversation, then number one, you're distinguishing yourself from most creatives who aren't having that conversation, and you're positioning yourself as a business partner.
Yeah, so I do see a question in here from Ginny in the comment section here. So I always follow up with the client after the project is over, and it's called, I don't know, like an exit kind of conversation, just to follow up what happened, what was good and what was bad. But we never really talk about the nitty-gritty of money, or did they see a result? Like, I never really get that far, but I do a follow-up with everybody who I do work for. So, but how to, ask them. And then if they just say, I don't know how it improved, or I don't know, it's like, it feels like an empty conversation. I want to add more value than just somebody who just made this great freaking design for them.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Mhm.
So there are two things that came to mind when you were talking. One of them is that what you want to do is be part of the strategy. And if you just say that that's part of your package, and explain that means being included in those things, then they might include you in those things. The other thing is, when I follow up with people, and I just remade my follow-up based on Danielle Hughes. I don't know if you guys know her. She has these 3 questions that she asks. I send them I use Jot form, and I send them a Jot form. It asks these 3 questions, and that's it. But I don't send it when a project is finished. I wait a month, or I wait 2 months, when they might have some statistics for me. Not everybody likes answering it, and a lot of people don't know that. But you can follow up then and ask them, follow-up questions, that you might be able to get a little bit more out of them from. But I find, even for websites that I design, which I'm no longer designing, but I would wait a year before I contacted the client for those metrics.
That's a
Wow.
good point. And what about creating retainer-based continuous relationships? Has anyone been able to successfully do that here? Yes, Ginny?
I was just saying, yes, I've created a couple of those. 2 or 3 of my clients are, ongoing work, retainer based.
And are they hourly, or are they by project?
Both. One of them is by project. One of them I do hourly.
I have a question about that.
Can you wait just 1 second, because Cynthia raised her hand also
Mhm.
before? Do you want to go, Cynthia?
Yeah, I do. I do the same thing. In fact, I'm mostly retainer and hourly, because I embed in a lot of teams.
Okay.
So I become like the consultant, but embedded within the team. And then it's like, I just finished one that was 19 months.
Wow.
So they needed me. And so I basically ran a department
Mhm.
until they could find someone and hire someone and do all of that. And it took them that long to do all of that.
Yeah, so that's nice when you have those longer term agreements, because
it
then you
is.
have some, monthly recurring revenue to count on. Mhm.
Linda?
Okay, so I got close with a client about a retainer arrangement. And I was, very excited about that. It didn't happen. We didn't even get close to the conversation. But what I was thinking was, if you do like even if you think in your mind an hourly, right? at a, or you're getting paid maybe $3,000 a month for a certain amount of hours, but you charge $10,000 for a logo and they ask you to do a logo during that time, you're sort of not getting what you would normally get. You know, that's the only thing that I was thinking about, like, great, I can charge somebody whatever, $5,000 a month for a certain block of time, but if I could do the logo and get 10,000, wouldn't I be shortchanging myself?
I don't include logos in my retainers. They are absolutely written out of them.
Oh, thank you for saying that, because
Yeah.
I'm struggling with how much of me is in that retainer. You know, like I might design a newsletter, a new one, and charge somebody $15,000 or $20,000, but I could certainly also do it the same amount of time under the retainer and only get paid $3,000. I hate thinking about shortchanging myself, so I don't understand the retainer thing as much as I'd like to.
Well, also, if you have a retainer for a particular period of time, right? So the minimum retainer, let's say, is 6 months, or, you know, and then you can revisit it at the end of 6 months. If you have, you know, 6 months worth of $5,000 a month retainers, that's $30,000. So while you might get paid X for a newsletter, that would be a one-off project, but here you have a guarantee of 6 months worth of revenue from the client. So I agree with Nancy. I would take out certain things like logos and things that are really high value assets. But when you start thinking about, well, what if something costs this? You need to think about it in what is the value of the relationship over time, you know? And if I have that client for 2 years and that's turned out to be, you know, 120,000 over those 2 years, then the exchange was probably worth it.
Did you use an employment attorney to draft up a contract between you and the client?
So I have a different business model. I work with individual business owners like yourselves, mostly solopreneurs. So I do have an attorney that's written up the contract.
And we have a
Yes.
speaker in April, I believe, who's an attorney who will be talking to us about contracts. There's also the AIGA. If you're a graphic designer, you don't have to pay for their membership. You can go to the library, check out their guidelines, and there are contracts in there.
Well, same thing with the pricing and ethical guidelines.
Yeah,
book.
that's where they are. Kathleen?
It's not in the AIGA, that's in the Graphic Artist
Graphic
Guild.
Artists Guild, yeah.
Yeah,
sorry.
correct. There's another legal book that's out there as well. I have it on my shelf. I can't remember the author's name, but I was thinking about that. I was thinking about how you cannot be abused during that time and what the parameters would be, and not to turn yourself into an employee during that time as well, just being like crapped on as many projects as possible.
I think you just have to be really specific when you write the contract. For mine also say what hours I will work, like they can't contact me after a certain time of day, etc. So you have to just really rein everything in. Kathleen?
So I was just gonna say to your issue, Linda, is that you can start the retainer and help formulate it based on, you can use some kind of an hourly base to start, so that when you do arrive at a project or they ask you for a project that's clearly more than the hours that you're in your mind would be the maximum hours that you would want to work for that monthly amount, you can say to them, listen, we can do the newsletter, but we're going to have to spread it over 2 months or something like that. You know what I mean? So that you can, or however much time, or you can go out of scope or something like that, you know, build in your out of scope boundary and the line in the sand or something. And then, yeah.
That's really good advice, because, you know, I can tend to work really fast and then I feel like I'm being abused. So that's really good advice. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I have, and I have a virtual assistant who's my online business manager. She's not a graphic designer, but with all the lead pages, you know, she can build a page really quickly with that modular format, and she's super fast because she's very technical. And I've actually been working on her to revise her pricing, because her pricing, even though she's $100 an hour, it's still not reflective of she's my most valuable employee. I mean, virtual employee, and I pay her the least of anyone. And there's something wrong with that. So you shouldn't be penalized just because you're fast.
Let me ask you a
I
question
know.
that I come up with. So I charge only by the project. but it gives them a certain number of revisions. And then revisions are by the hour. And people are always like, oh my God, you charge 200 or 250 an hour or whatever like thing that I decide to charge. And then they freak out, and that will throw them that they're paying way too much because they only make like $40 an hour or something. So is there any way that you would recommend doing overage packages, or, you know, additional rounds would cost a package price for those as well, as opposed to giving them an hourly rate for those?
So there's two ways you can do it. You could do it that way, Nancy, right? Or you could just increase your fees and expect overage. So I would like look at, of all the projects that I do, what percentage of them actually have overage revisions. If it's a lot of them, if it's more than 50%, I just like build it into the project fee.
For instance, I hired Jocelyn, who's on this call and knows this is probably knows that I'm going to pick on her. I hired her to write a project for a client of mine who is constantly texting me during this call. And she's on round 10 of revisions with this.
Oh,
Now Jocelyn gave me a per page fee for this. And I said to her, I want to also let her know what the hourly rate will be, because she will go over the rounds of revisions you're putting in there. And I'm sure that Jocelyn is very happy that I did that.
Yeah.
Right, Joss?
Yeah, this is just like no other project I've ever been on, but that just goes to show that you do need to build in those revisions and that the terms for, you know, going over the
Yeah.
the expected number of revisions. Like she's exceeded that by 10 times. So it's been crazy.
Yeah. And so some clients are going to be more profitable than others.
Right.
It brings up if I may, that brings up an interesting point though, both Nancy and Jocelyn too, is that if your client received a package price and they're now also into 10 rounds of revisions, maybe you could have raised their prices with that client, because they're obviously not taking the hourly seriously, or they are taking it seriously, but they're very willing to pay it. So that might be, I mean, I don't know, Deborah, if you would agree.
They had actually a pretty nice sized package
Wow.
for it, and they just cannot make up their minds.
Mm.
So
Usually hourly pricing after the fact, which is what I do also for out of scope. Usually hourly pricing gets their attention and they suddenly start having meetings with each other and having and start making better decisions, but it sounds like not in this case.
no, not in this case.
Yeah, and you may have certain practices that work well within your industry that, you know, don't work within mine. So, I mean, absolutely trust your own gut intuition on if you've noticed that, Kathleen, that people start making decisions faster once they're in hourly rate overtime, then do it. It's effective.
Yeah. Any other takeaways or questions?
I just want to inspire you because I have a copywriter that I've used that charges $25,000 to copyright a website. She charges $15,000 to do a small campaign, you know, like an opt-in page and email sequences and things like that. So just look outside, look at the market, see what other people are charging, and what those packages are worth, and get inspired. But I really think there's a power to be had in helping clients make database decisions. So I know I kind of threw that in there, but highly encourage you to take a look at Google Data Studio, especially for the clients that you have continuous retainer relationships with, or even Nancy, you know, it might be a benchmark when we first get started of where your current website is. Let's build a new website. Let's continue to monitor this month after month. And maybe, you know, they would enable you to also monitor it as well.
Yeah.
And then you have great stories to tell. The problem with the project work is you're a gun for hire, it's one and done, and then
Mm.
you never know the result of that work. And that, I think, puts you at a disadvantage.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been working with this project since January of 2020, so it's been a nice ongoing piece of profit for me. But the person's a little bit annoying. Little bit, Jocelyn? Yeah, so.
So I'd like to know, as we're wrapping up, what is one thing that you're taking away that you might do differently or think about differently as you make agreements with new clients?
Double my rates.
Yeah. I've done what you've done, Deb, or advised over time. A new client doesn't know what the rate was, so it's a higher rate if I believe they can afford that.
Now, wait a minute. I want to just stop you right there, Jenny. Don't get your head in your customer's wallet.
Okay, good.
Okay?
Yep,
Let's
yep.
not make assumptions on what people can afford. Let's have the conversation about, well, what's the value of this to you? What do you believe that not having this, what is the cost or the opportunity lost from not pursuing this initiative? And what do you expect the results to be? And what would be the value of that to you?
Okay.
What do you feel about asking someone if they like to say, well, we've gone over everything. I've got a budget in my mind. Do you think this is going to be 15,000, 25,000, or I always like to say 5 million, but what do you think about giving them options of pricing that that you can live within these range? I usually have people choose the middle pricing. Maybe they don't want to feel cheap or something, but what do you feel about offering options or asking what a budget is or something like that?
Yeah, you can always ask, do you have a budget in mind for this? And then you can still go through the due diligence of, what do you expect the value of this? What do you believe the return on investment to be for you? And then you can still present a higher number. You can always fall back. You can negotiate either a smaller scope or I believe in lower fees, but if the budget is the budget, you can then say, okay, within this budget, here's what we can do.
Okay. Any other questions or takeaways?
I had a quick question, and maybe it's something to be answered at a later time. I realize we're running out of time, but to your point about presenting a fee and saying like, does this, this is my fee, this works for you. And then it goes crickets. Where you think, oh my gosh, I guess I really overestimated. How do you get them back? Do you even want to get them back?
Yeah, so I'm a huge fan of value selling, which is why we do those questions up in advance. So what's the issue? What's not working in the design that you have today, or why do we need this new digital asset? What's in it for you? What is the situation internally? Why is this important to sub out? And what do you expect the value to be? And then you always present it live to the person. I am not a fan of submitting requests to proposals, but booking an appointment. Let me walk you through this. And so then I start with the business issue, the challenges this is causing, what their requested solution is, and the value they expect to get from that. And then you propose your solution did I get that right? Is there anything I missed? Is there anything you'd like to add? And then, here's our process. Here's the cost. Here's the timeline cost.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
And then you stop talking.
I also present my proposals as well. And I tell them that it's in progress. So I'd love to get their feedback. And that enables them to, when you get to the pricing, say, this is the price range I'm thinking, is it in your range? And you get instant feedback right then.
That's good. Yeah, good strategy. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Well, I want to thank Deb. I thought this was a great presentation. We will be sending out the video recording. I've got Otter who did a transcript for us, whoever Otter is, and we'll send the video and the presentation. And I hope everyone got as much out of this as I did.
I'm going to just drop my LinkedIn profile in here. So if you want to connect on LinkedIn, you know, love to follow
send
your
that.
work.
I'll send all your information again with the recap as well.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining today.
Thanks so much, Deb. I truly appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Take
Have
care.
a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.